I guess coming back to learning the primitive data types that Java have. In programming languages, we have something called variables, which is like a container that holds particular value. And Java is a static language, which for every container that you have, before you use it, you need to define the type first, which is, for example, you have a container that particularly store a number, then you need to tell Java, oh, this is for number only. Then you can only put number inside. Another one is specifically for storing a text. So you tell Java that it's only storing a text. It cannot store number. Yeah. So this is the types, all the types that Java need to be predefined before you actually use the variable. So there are several primitive data types. For example, the first one is integers, int, which stands for integer, and it holds a shorter range of whole numbers. The second one is character. Character is similar to integer, but it is something that stores one single text, right? So you can either define like this, or you can also define like this. So it only holds a single integer. It's a single value, a single text. And you need to wrap it by using a single quote in order to define a character. Then the third one is long. You can just imagine that long is a longer range of integer, which hold a better value. Yeah. And in order to store a value with decimal places, you might need to consider using float. So in order to declare what is float, you need to put, like, after the number, put an F to tell the program that, oh yeah, tell the compiler that this is only for float. So float is a smaller container to store values with decimal places, and double is a larger container that stores numbers with decimal places. Also, yeah. So here you can find some primitive data types that Java have. The first one is byte, where the range of the byte is really small, like from 127 to -128. So anything that exceeds the range, for example, if you want to hold a number, you want to hold your salary as 500. Okay. Then if you want to try storing this 500 into the bytes, it will still not fail, but you'll get an overflow issue, whereby the number that you get is rubbish already. It's not representing the actual number you have. So you need to be really careful when choosing the size of container. So byte is a smaller one. And character, you can store like all Unicode characters, such as ABC and so on. Short is a shorter range of integer. It's really small, so you need to be careful when using it. Usually we'll use integer, which has a respectively like larger range, which we might not exceed like in normal case. If you read a really large number, which is also a whole number, remember, yeah, these are only for whole number, you need to use long. As you can see, for several types, there are some explicit sign to define that number is for this type. It's a really good practice, that because sometimes when you want to compile the program and the program ended up storing it as a smaller container or a larger container that doesn't fit the particular variable type, it will happen. Yeah, for Java it will happen. So explicitly declare the type is a good practice actually. So float from this range to that range, double is this range to that range, and we have boolean. Boolean is also a type which we will frequently use, which only store false and true. So if you want to know the conditional checking, you use boolean and initialize it as true or initialize it as false. Yeah. These primitive types are the fundamentals for learning Java. You need to be clear when to use what types, when to use what size of containers, and also before you solving a problems, think properly first. Yeah? Whether the container that you choose has the capacity to store that number or not. Overflow problem, it happens quite frequently, especially if you are joining a competitions for competitive programming. Usually people use integer, like because when they are doing the lab session, when they are doing the tutorials, we only require to use integer for the questions. But there are cases where we need to use a larger container. It depends on the question set, especially when programming competitions. Usually they will provide a really large number or really small numbers, so you need to be careful whether to use long or even another type, which is big integer, that I will probably explain in the future. Yeah. So make sure that you understand how to use this, how to initialize all these variables. If you have any problems, feel free to ask in the below comments. Yeah. Alright, that's all. Thank you.